Hey everybody, Eric Hayden here on YouTube. Fantastic weather across eastern North Carolina. We finally saw some rain. We're actually classified as being in a drought, but the roses not showing any impacts from that because of course we're watering them heavily. This tour today is going to show you some of the more popular exhibition roses. This one is Veterans Honor, really nice red rose. You can see the majority of them have yet to bloom, but this is one of the first blooms here. It's a very nice red rose. It does not have a fragrance like a Mr. Lincoln or something like that, but if you want a long stem red rose, sometimes you can find these in the garden stores, and if you see any of this on the petals there, that's just some of the spray I've used on the roses themselves. But fantastic growing rose, decent disease resistance. I mean, it's not immune to black spot, but it's one of the ones that tend to get it a little later in the season than the others, so it's looking pretty good. A couple other roses I want to show you. This one is Randy Scott. It's a white rose with a hint of yellow. Really pretty rose as well. Again, these are the first couple of blooms. You can see the majority are still in the bud phase. So Randy Scott, definitely Veterans Honor. Veterans Honor and Gemini are the two I want to kind of highlight today. Even with a few blemishes because of bugs biting them, this rose right here is a beauty. Very good form. This is why I grow it. A lot of the roses I grow are hybrid teas that have exhibition form, and what that is a tall center that comes to a point, and the petals tend to open a little slower. So if I were to show this in a rose show, I don't want it to open so quickly that by the time I get there, or certainly by later in the morning when the judging happens, it opens up too far. So Gemini and Veterans Honor are two of the better roses. In addition, I highly recommend you belong to the American Rose Society and your local society. If you have a membership to ARS, American Rose Society, you get a handbook each year, and it'll tell you overall what the growing is for the rose. And it's averaged out across the country, so certain areas do better with certain varieties, like Alina down here doesn't do as well as it does in a cooler climate. With that said, as far as growing, Gemini is one of the top roses. It's rated in the 8s. Anything above 8.0 is really good. Same with Veterans Honor. This is Hot Princess. No blooms to show you. Well, I see one on the back side, but I just want to show you the tremendous growth. Look at all this new lush, shiny leaves. And I'm leaving these on as a demonstration purpose. We have a rose tour here next Saturday. I'm going to try to do a video on that as well. You can see what happened to the leaves earlier in the season. That is now a distant memory. Hot Princess is a nice pink rose. Really vibrant pink. It's actually a florist rose. So sometimes in the grocery store you'll see the roses are labeled. I'm talking the ones that you would bring home to family, like a florist shop or the grocery store, and sometimes you'll see that they are labeled, and sometimes you'll see that Hot Princess is one of the names because it is a florist rose. This is just now starting to open up. This is Jewel Grace. Sometimes the blooms can be a little bit smaller, but just a fantastic red. And then as it opens up, you'll see a yellow coloring on it, almost kind of similar to Double Delight. Not quite as dramatic, but a nice yellow hue to it as that bloom opens up. So the garden is looking good. I showed you Veterans Honor and Gemini. Those are two roses that I highly recommend for just the fact that they grow well and they produce really nice blooms. Some of those other ones are a little harder to find. But Gemini and Veterans Honor are two that you should be able to get fairly easily through mail order or even the local garden shop. This one, this beauty, Fragrant Cloud, a nice orange rose. This is in our fragrance garden. Just outstanding fragrance to it. It is not an exhibition rose, so you contrast that with the Gemini I just showed you. It opens up quickly, and nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's a pretty rose. You can see the stamens, and it just looks really nice. That yellow inside contrasting with the orange doesn't get much better than that. Not as good of a grower. It hasn't been here as long as Gemini, but you know, not as tall or robust. You can see some of these newer canes on it looking good. This is one I can't wait to show you when they're all open. This is Folklore. It's an orange rose. bred in the 70s, late 70s, I think, by Cordis. It's a German hybridization company or business, and you can see just a pretty rose. Has good form to it usually, and the blooms last a while. I mean, this one has been on here for quite a while and quite robust here. And even up in New York, it was one of my taller roses. The sport to that is European Touch. No blooms to show you, but you can see it's more of a lighter color, more of an apricot rose. As I look in the garden, I don't see too much else to show you. There's Secret, Pope John Paul II. So things are growing really well. I'm trying to see if I see any more blooms worth showing. I think there's going to be 2 over here that will show you. Yeah, here's a crescendo. If you look really from a distance, it looks like Gemini, right? The leaves are glossy, and unlike Gemini, it has a slight fragrance. One of the parents is Gemini, so you can see where it gets its coloring from. Not as good a grower. You can also find this in the stores, mail order. I'll try to put some links below in the video, but you can see it gets its glossy leaves and coloring from Gemini, one of the parents, but not as robust. This is a 1.5-year-old plant, so obviously it's not going to be as tall, but even my bigger, more mature crescendo is not as big as Gemini. This one harder to get. This is Claire Elise. This is a newer quote-unquote rose from John Smith. Nice red, kind of a lighter red, and it puts out some very nice blooms as well. So that's it for the garden today. Just kind of give you a general overview. Things are looking good. That moonstone there is probably going to get dug out and replaced. I always order a couple mail orders in the fall, and the reason is a lot of times I have to replace roses. Things happen. I mean, the majority of the garden's doing well, but this one here, Baby's Blush, probably going to replace that. And it is what it is. You can see right next to it a very robust Mr. Caleb. So sometimes roses just don't make it. You just dig them out and replace them with another one. Sometimes, you know, a particular one that's been grafted might not be as strong. Maybe you get a cold winter or a late freeze in the spring. Some just, you know, can't take it as much as others. I'm going to wrap this video up with these 2. I'll have to look at the labels. I'm pretty sure just from the leaves I can tell this one on the right is Gemini, and this one on the left is Moonstone. So these are the 2 roses I got from Palentine in the early December, potted them up, and they didn't do much, you know, over the winter, but kind of keeping them inside. But I am going to do a separate video on, I think one of the best things you can do getting roses, get them bare root through the mail. It's cheaper, you can get a lot of them, and pot them up. If it's, you know, probably in the spring for a lot of us with really harsh winters, but you pot them up, you let them become established. These are 5-gallon pots. And then after a couple months, when they're really, really established, like these are, I mean, you can see these new canes, and these have actually fallen over a couple times because they're so top heavy. Once they become almost root bound, pop them in the garden. So for me, usually it's midsummer, but since I potted these up in December, it's going to be the middle of May, maybe late May, that I'm going to put these in the ground. So when I have one that hasn't done well, I replace it. And here's a contrast. I got this at Witherspoon Roses. These were potted up, but this is just not doing that well. It just happens sometimes. It's a one cane wonder. It's a moonstone. I might dig it up and pot it. I don't want to give up on it, but it's just taking up space right now. So I will put one of those potted moonstones in its place. And it just depends. Again, sometimes they take off. Other times you're going to just have to dig them up and replace them with something else. This Pope John Paul II, Secret, and then the Fragrant Cloud, they're all from Witherspoon as well. So sometimes a rose takes off and sometimes it doesn't. Don't spend too much time on something that's not doing good. Obviously give it a chance, but if it's not doing good, pop it out of the ground, replace it with another one, and keep things moving. You don't have time to waste on a plant that's not performing. So that is it. If you're wondering, these gardens were pruned a little later. Here's Double Delight. So they are just now starting to leaf out. I was a little lazy with the pruning. I kind of wanted to, I thought about leaving these gardens be and see what the result would be. And with it came a late late prune job. So I'll last leave you with Yolande de Aragon. Again, this is an old garden rose, really pretty bloom. Not shown as well. There we go. Had to get it out of the shade. So, as always, I appreciate the subscribers. Show me your picture. If you've got videos, this is how our garden looks the middle of May here in eastern North Carolina. I will do these rose tours every couple days because they seem to be pretty popular. They're getting the most views, so it seems like you all are most interested in seeing roses, and that makes sense. And hopefully you can appreciate the transformation of the garden from how it was a couple weeks to a couple months ago. Just looked like some sticks. We pruned back, and then you can see the result. Real healthy growth, and especially in the beds that are more established. These are ginormous roses, and they will be kicking butt here for at least the next couple weeks. You can see we're probably only about 10%, if that, of the blooms in the garden. So should be looking spectacular here over the latter part of May. We're about 2 to 3 weeks behind where we normally are, but that's no big deal. The blooms are still coming. Have a good one, and as always, I appreciate your support.